That's right, we're finally raiding the big box Trek shelf on LGR and taking a look back at Star Trek Voyager: Elite Force. Developed by Raven Software and published by Activision in the year 2000 for Windows and Mac OS. Set phasers to frag. Powered by Quake 3. Yeah, they weren't beating around the bush with this bandwagony marketing. If you liked Quake 3 Arena, try Elite Force. Sure, Star Trek branding sells on its own, but why not capitalize on your own success? Activision had sold over 300,000 copies of Quake 3 Arena by the time Elite Force came along, and Voyager was prepping to air its 7th and final season. So the two combined were quite the appealing combo, even if you hadn't yet played Quake 3, like me. Back then I was far more familiar with Voyager than I was with arena shooters, although not for lack of interest. I frequently ogled ads, reviews, and screenshots for Quake 3, Unreal Tournament, and Elite Force, but I hadn't yet had the chance to play one of them. That was until this October 2000 issue of PC Gamer magazine, with its accompanying demo disc containing a deeply enjoyable demo for Elite Force. As a teenage computer gamer with a limited budget and dial-up internet, these cover disc demos were manna from heaven, and I played the dookie out of the one for Elite Force. It had snippets of both single and multiplayer modes, but it was the latter that really tickled my fancy. It was the first time I'd played this particular breed of frantic deathmatch against believable AI-controlled bots, and I was immediately hooked, making it a priority of mine to eventually grab the full version, which came in this lovely box, where inside you got the game itself on CD-ROM tucked in a clear jewel case, a Trek-themed ad for GameSpy.com, and its system of Planet websites, many of which I spent an inordinate amount of time browsing back then, and an instruction manual graced with this battle-ready pose of the Elite Force team itself. Inside is a welcome 57 pages of documentation detailing each in-game feature and possible control scheme, along with write-ups on weapons, pickups, and members of the crew, and a teaser for the final season of Voyager airing on UPN. Yeah, whatever though, nobody joins Starfleet for the paperwork. It's time to boldly go where a good number of folks have gone before and jump right into Elite Force on Windows 98.
Welcome to Voyager LCAR's menu system.
I love how Elite Force begins by dropping you into an LCARS menu straight off the show, narrated here by Judy Durand, who also voiced the computer in Deep Space Nine. The voice credits only get better from here too, with the main crew of Star Trek Voyager reprising their roles from the show, minus Jerry Ryan's 7 of 9, who's portrayed by an imposter, at least till patch version 1.2 where they added her in, completing the virtual cast. On that note, let's start with single player and get plopped onto the USS Voyager crew as Ensign Alex Monroe, short for Alexander or Alexandria depending on your selected sex. And the journey begins in style, with narration by the one and only Kate Mulgrew.
Voyager's chief of security assembled an elite force of security personnel named the Hazard Team. Ensign Monroe is second in command of this uniquely trained team. Equipped with 7 of 9's experimental anti-Borg weapon, the Infinity Modulator, the Hazard Team has beamed to a Borg cube on a dangerous mission.
Yeah, having the original actors on board like this really makes Elite Force feel like a canonical Voyager experience right from the start, even if its events are decidedly non-canon. It takes place late in the year 2376, stardate 53854.7. Placing it later on in the Season 6 timeline of Voyager, which, if you're curious, falls between the episodes Live Fast and Prosper and Muse. Several episodes before the Unimatrix Zero cliffhanger that had me so intrigued back in the day, UPN had my attention by the balls. Anyway, you and your fresh-faced teammates make up Voyager's Elite Hazard Team Alpha Squad, run by Lieutenant Commander Tuvok's delightful dancing eyebrows. And go figure, no sooner than you pick up a phaser rifle, you're in deep space crap, isolated from the rest of the Hazard team in the middle of a room full of Borg. A solid start for a red shirt if there ever was one, so it's your job to defy the odds and not die horribly before the next commercial break tries to sell you bagel bites or whatever.
When pizza's on a bagel, you can eat pizza anytime.
Ah, crap, too late, I'm dead. Didn't even make it to the bottom of the hour. Well, not exactly dead, but assimilated, because Elite Force doesn't mess around. They could have provided a simple game over screen, but nope, you've been assimilated. Nice job, doofus, your new name is 8 of 12. I also enjoy how if you happen to vaporize a teammate, entirely on accident of course, then you get sent to the brig and have to endure chastising by your superiors.
I'm very disappointed in you, Ensign. I knew your father, and he would not be proud of your performance today.
I don't know what you were thinking, Ensign, but you'd better straighten up or you might be spending a lot more time in here.
Guess that means our woodwind choir concert is off. Well, I'll have to get crewman Ferriola to take your place.
It's great how Janeway and Chakotay are all, "You've shamed your family, you had so much potential," and Kim's just like, "Oh man, now we can't play the flute together." The writers knew their Voyager, I'll give them that. And Tuvok's all stoic and full of eyebrows, the Doctor's bedside manner is legendarily awful, Paris is reckless and always trying to redeem himself, and Neelix is annoying, always butting in at the most inopportune times.
So, I was wondering...
So, how's the Tarkalian wine? I was told 2245 was an excellent year.
Yes, it's good. Thanks.
They really did all they could to make it feel just like an episode of the show, at least as far as licensing and funding allowed. Jerry Goldsmith's Voyager intro theme remained elusive, so they were stuck using generic space opera music, but hey, at least the FMV is on point, with visuals taken directly from the show. Really, the entire campaign is structured like a multi-episode arc, covering 8 missions and an epilogue, individually composed of around 40 maps, with the overall plot of the game centered around Voyager having been attacked by an unknown force and transported to some kind of starship graveyard.
Voyager was attacked by an unknown force and transported to some kind of starship graveyard.
Indeed. Not only that, but the warp core's gone offline because of course that's what it does. And conveniently for the plot, the vessel is trapped in a location surrounded by ships and species from around the galaxy, meaning a variety of spaceships to explore on away missions and varied alien lifeforms to shoot across the campaign's 5-ish hours story. And perhaps unsurprisingly, there's more than a bit of a Half-Life influence going on before too long, in both structure and gameplay. You've got a full-body hazard suit that recharges using wall-mounted power stations, large levels split up into smaller map sections with hallways and elevators sanctioned as loading zones, and even an obstacle course tutorial level, with hologram Tuvok logically popping up teaching you how to crouch jump and stuff. However, you also end up in several in-between sections aboard Voyager itself, acting as a hub level where you can wander around, equip and try new weapons on the holodeck, crawl through Jeffrey's tubes when the need inevitably arises, and talk with Voyager personnel both major and minor. In fact, the script for Elite Force was something like 400 pages, so there's a significant chunk of content to dive into here. And while the show's cast do make appearances here and there, most interactions take place between you and your teammates, many being unique to Elite Force, minus Chell, Jurat, and Vorik, who all briefly appeared on episodes of Voyager, but fine by me. I've always had a soft spot for red shirts, both the general concept and the John Scalzi novel, so it's nice to play from their expendable perspective, with a story less focused on the core crew's weekly drama. Besides, there's no way that we're going to kill off major characters from the show, so focusing on them would naturally lower the stakes. Having a bunch of red shirts around, well, you know there's going to be some gnarly deaths for those poor souls. And in classic Trek fashion, you even get to choose who dies from time to time, with pesky moral quandaries getting in the way of direct orders.
I would advise against taking unnecessary risks.
Unnecessary? Monroe, we can't just leave him behind like this.
And when morality fails, there's an arsenal of support in the form of 9 nifty weapons being wielded by friend and foe alike. Many of these guns come directly from Voyager, TNG, and DS9, each with primary and alternate firing modes as expected for a Quake 3 engine game. Beyond the traditional phasers and rifles, there are several new and satisfying additions to mesh with the story being told. Like this alien stasis weapon, a pulsating organic energy blasting thing you pick up in a squishy spaceship. There's the scavenger rifle that works like an energy chain gun / grenade launcher cobbled together by survivors stuck in the same place as Voyager. And there's also the Photon Burst, which is a straight up portable photon torpedo launcher. I'll say that again, a portable photon torpedo launcher. Nice. And then there's the Infinity Modulator, or iMod, which modulates infinitely, blasting each time at a slightly different frequency so the Borg can't adapt to it. Yeah, I get why they did this, but it completely ruins the overwhelming dread one should experience rummaging around a Borg cube. Like at first, this is great. Drones act as they should, walking towards you ominously and endlessly, seeking only to assimilate you into the collective. Whatever you shoot them with, they adapt, becoming impervious to your attacks until eventually you're left with nothing. Except then you get the iMod and it's fine. Just shoot them in the head and they go down in one shot. Again, I get gameplay balancing, you gotta do it, but it happens a little too soon in Elite Force's story, I think, so I wish they'd drawn out the terror a little bit longer. Because the Borg are relegated to being laser-eyed locusts in bondage gear, aimlessly plaguing your team as you zap them like bugs. And that's alongside all the other bugs to swat, with swarms of crawling and flying critters constantly emerging to make a bad day at work that much worse. Thankfully, you have a teammate or 3 or 5 standing by, equipped with capable weaponry and the game's trademark Icarus AI and scripting system. This was designed to provide more cinematic moments and make NPCs react more intelligently, following and employing squad tactics in less annoying ways than the usual AI companions. Which, yeah, for the year 2000, they're pretty competent. Usually only 1 or 2 dies every couple of missions, not a bad ratio for your typical red shirt. But while they're not as dumb as they could be, there's something to be said for expediency, as in they don't have any. Especially when loading onto one of the campaign's 47,000 elevator platforms. Just get over here! Right here! Plenty of space, you don't have to go one at a time, really, you can just... Oh god, why? And if NPCs don't sluggishly follow along, they may utilize a quicker and decidedly not Starfleet-approved method.
Mitch is dead, Alex.
We have to keep moving, Austin. Voyager is counting on us.
Even with the unintended comedy, suffice it to say I was ready for the end before Elite Force was ready for the end. And as the credits roll, I can't help but feel a tad underwhelmed. It's a decent little campaign to be sure, but despite the Half-Life-y similarities, there's little in the way of memorable set pieces, difficult choices, or bonkers Star Trek silliness. For better or worse, Voyager gets pretty out there in terms of weird plot lines.
We're Starfleet officers. Weird is part of the job.
So in that respect, the story is somewhat tame, and I kinda wish Elite Force didn't play it so safe. Now, props to them for finding a way to shoehorn in Species 8472, though, adding to their appearances in Seasons 3, 4, and 5. These xenomorph-inspired psycho aliens make natural video game enemies, and they're a brief but fun diversion for the little time they show up. But they also highlight one of the big problems here. Most of the fights boil down to bug hunts, mowing down infestations of enemies swarming into the room until they decide to stop. The story is fine, the characters are fine, the weapons are fine, but the central combat loop results in a campaign that's largely repetitious, predictable, and a smidge dull. And it's why I haven't felt the need to replay the Elite Force story mode in over 20 years. On the flip side, the same cannot be said for multiplayer, which I keep coming back to. This separate game executable is known as HoloMatch.
Welcome to HoloMatch.
It's your typical suite of deathmatch, CTF, team deathmatch, and miscellaneous game types. And really, if you're familiar with Quake 3 at all, then you'll be right at home here. With several dozen maps and over 50 character skins, there's a healthy serving of fragtastic goodness to enjoy. And man, there are some deep cuts with a number of these characters. I don't know why Raven chose to include so many obscure choices here, but I absolutely applaud them for it. And the resulting carnage is just the best kind of multiplayer mayhem. Forcing licensed characters to perform such violent acts that go completely against every moral fiber of their written character, it's a special thing to behold. There really is nothing quite like killing off the Voyager bridge crew playing as the Doctor.
You win. Your commendations? Sharpshooter. Tactician. Ace.
Now, the in-universe reason for this is that everyone's stuck in limbo, waiting around to be attacked by unknown aliens, so hey, may as well get the entire ship into the holodeck to practice their combat skills before the invasion, right? Sure, whatever. The effective result is that you've got Quake 3 with a Star Trek skin, and it is sublime, regardless of the mode being played. I stuck to the original CTF and deathmatch modes back in the day, with up to 32 total players composed of bots or humans, but the eventual expansion pack added some fascinating asymmetrical options. Like assimilation, where one team composed of Borg tries to assimilate the other team, reducing the number of non-Borg players as the match progresses. And action hero mode, where one player is given tons of weapons and power-ups, while the other players try to gang up on them to take them down and power up themselves. Specialties mode is pretty solid too, a Team Fortress-like thing letting deathmatch and CTF players choose a class for their character, like Sniper, Medic, Infiltrator, and so on. Elimination is a good old last man standing game type, and of course, Disintegration is your classic one-shot kill mode, with everyone insta-fragging everyone else in a frenzy of phasers and photon torpedoes. Beautiful. On the topic of the expansion pack, yeah, this one. In addition to multiplayer things, it also came with the all-important 1.2 patch, plus some standalone single-player content and a feature called Virtual Voyager. Now, that last one is pretty excellent, offering a self-guided tour through 10 decks of the USS Voyager starship. Prepare to lean back and vibe with a little Star Trek world building armed only with a tricorder, so you can wander around and learn more about Monroe's past, the rest of the crew, the ship itself, and all manner of die-hard Trekkie goodness. The folks at Raven spent months building this feature alone, relying on Paramount's Star Trek reference library as well as tons of photos snapped on set, eventually resulting in over 1,000 unique textures and matching models. Man, the more I look back at Elite Force, the more the entire package impresses me. It took roughly 2 full years to develop, and it shows, with love and respect for the source material oozing off the screen. Unfortunately, it didn't do as well at retail as they'd hoped, only selling a few 100,000 units over its shelf life instead of the expected million or so anticipated by the Dark Lord known as Activision. Still, it was enough to spawn a pretty dedicated user base for a while. Along with a tie-in graphic novel published by Wildstorm that goes over the main story beats, a less-than-stellar PlayStation 2 port by Majesco and Pipe Dream Interactive hitting store shelves in 2001, plus a sequel in 2003, which I've admittedly played far less of over the years, despite its beefier story mode that by all accounts is quite enjoyable. It discarded most of the Voyager crew and instead takes place on the Enterprise E as a sort of almost sequel to Star Trek Nemesis. Lots of great talent involved once again, but the multiplayer was worse, in my opinion, with far fewer maps and characters to choose from compared to the original. Its low sales numbers ended up making it Activision's final Star Trek game, which was probably for the best in hindsight. Yeah, well, the original Elite Force is still where it's at. And thankfully it was re-released to coincide with the franchise's 55th anniversary, able to be purchased on GOG.com if you're interested. After all, shooting up an entire crew of Neelixes, that's an experience worth engaging in, at least once. And if you enjoyed this Trektacular retrospective, then do check out some of my others, or stick around for new videos coming up here soon on LGR. And as always, thank you for watching.